Hi guys, it's Rob from Royal Balls, but I guess you knew that already. I'm sitting down here, so this must be serious. If any of you have been watching my recent videos, the behavioural videos, free roaming videos, you will have noticed that there's been some fantastic discussion and some backwards and forwards, toing and froing in the comments section. Very interesting, very thought-provoking. So what I thought I'd do for you guys today is free roaming. I know many of you are interested in it. Many of you have been attempting to do it with your own snakes, and some of you have been having a little trouble. And I'm sure you've put that down to the fact that these are tub-reared snakes. They're shy, they're fearful, and it's going to take some time to get them to free roam. So I've made a video for you guys, and I take a snake and I show you how I free roam and how that went. And I think that was successful. So this video is for all you guys that want to free roam and are not sure how to do it. Take a look, and I hope the video helps. I've also taken the opportunity to add a little bit of handling of our hatchlings. We have talked in the comments section about habituation and about how a little bit of handling could be a good thing for our snakes. If we can reduce the levels of stress when we handle or when we clean, that can be a good thing for our snakes. So I've included a little bit about how I'm going about this with some of the hatchlings. I'm taking a fairly mixed approach to this. I'm using a combination of free roaming and handling, and using the free roaming as an opportunity to actually handle the hatchlings. So there's a little bit of that in this video. And if you guys have got any comments, suggestions, or things that you want to see, things that you think I'm not doing right, or things that you want to add, drop down in the comments. The comments is the place to be, to add your own thoughts and opinions, and I will try to incorporate that as much as possible in these experiments. Now, when I was doing the free roaming video, I selected a snake at random. I wanted a snake that you guys have never seen before, free roaming. So it's a different snake. You will not have seen this snake before. And I didn't realise until after I'd made the video how significant that choice was. I got this snake several years ago. This snake was purchased from ARP when he was at Subang, which is 2 shops ago. He's had two shop moves since I purchased this snake. So the snake has got to be 6 years old. And it's a lesser super enchy male. I haven't actually used it for breeding. It was one of those snakes that you purchase and then wonder what you're going to do with it. That snake has actually been tub reared for 5-6 years. It's never been out of its tub. It has never been handled. I could not have picked a worse example, a more extreme example to try free roaming. If any of you have been watching the recent trends in the hobby about enrichment and tubs versus terrariums, and the lack of sensory stimulation that our snakes get in tubs and all that stuff, you will probably think that this snake is just not going to free roam. 5 minutes, guys. 5 minutes is all it took for this snake to start free roaming. It was diving in the bin. It discovered the IKEA snake rack. It spent a great deal of time free roaming as if it had been doing it all its life. Okay guys, a snake that has not actually been out on the table before showed an interest in coming out this morning, and I'm just going to show you guys how this snake responds, because I think other people are trying this and some of you may have had a little difficulty in getting your snakes to actually come out. So this guy has not been out on the table before, but you can see I've taken his tub out of the rack and just placed it on the table in the open. And this in itself is the first step towards free roaming. The snake has never experienced this before. He has stuck his head over the edge of the tub and ventured halfway out onto the table and then gone back into his tub. And as long as I don't startle him or do anything to make him fearful, he will, give him about 5 minutes or so, he will start to relax and come out of the tub and start to explore. This is perfectly normal for a snake that has not done this before. They are understandably a little nervous, but if you just persist, put the tub on the table and just leave it. Don't pull the snake out, don't touch the snake. Leave the snake to do what it wants to do, and if it doesn't come out of the tub, after a few minutes, just put it back in the rack and try again a different time. This has to be consent based, it has to be what the snake wants to do, and we do not want to stress our animals out. So just give them time. Each snake's going to be different, each is going to take its own time, but it is possible, even with new snakes like this one. I'll show you when he comes out of the tub, because I know he will. His confidence will increase as long as nothing happens, and we'll see how long it takes him to actually come out of the tub and start exploring. Now, whilst I'm doing this, I am continuing to clean other snakes and move around here. This is all part of the stuff that he needs to get used to while he's free roaming. So I'm not treating this guy any differently to any of the other snakes. I'm just letting him do his thing. So here we go, guys. That took just a few minutes, and as if you couldn't have guessed, guess where this guy is headed for. Okay, so he's come out of the tub all by himself. He's figured out what the scent is that he's interested in, and he's off to explore the bin. So we'll just carry on cleaning. Yes, Pepper. I'll get back to you with what this guy actually gets up to, but it's quite clear that his behaviour is very similar to the other snakes. So it's taken him about 5 minutes. Yes, Pepper. You can be part of the video. Yes. So it's taken him about 5 minutes to start behaving exactly like all the other snakes. Not a problem, guys. Just leave them alone. Let them do their thing. They know what they're looking for. Just let them do it. So this guy has actually managed to make his way down off the table all by himself. We've talked before about what it is that constitutes enrichment for these guys, and it's very obvious that scent is a huge part of what these guys are actually doing when they're out free roaming. So he's diving headfirst into the bin. This is a good opportunity for me to carry on cleaning some of the hatchlings, and we might even do a small handling session with the hatchling that I've selected for this experiment if he's awake. So let's let this guy carry on. I suspect that he is not going to move very far now away from the bin, and we can just leave him to get on with his business. So it hasn't actually taken very long for this guy to overcome his initial shyness and get with the program. Excellent. This boy has discovered the IKEA paper rack. And look at this, guys, the very close range tongue flicks as he picks up on a scent that he's particularly interested in. His face is pressed hard against the object and he's doing those little short tongue flicks. So this is the guy that took 5 minutes to come out of his tub. But oh my goodness, is he getting into this now? And the things that hold his interest are exactly the same things that hold all my other snakes' interest. My helper is in here at the moment, and she's very concerned that there are snakes out, and I think she's trying to warn me that there's danger. This is actually quite incredible, guys. For a snake that's never done this before, he gets it. He has no trouble at all using his senses to do what all the other snakes do. How incredible is that? And I have to admit, guys, that this free roaming, I never ever expected to see snakes doing this. It's a sort of communal scent post that they all use. They all use it in the same way. They're all absolutely fascinated by it. They're drawn to it. This is the first time this guy has ever been out on the scent post. And just look at what he's doing. Wow. This guy is the snake that I'd selected for handling, and whilst he is awake, I've done the same thing with him as I did with this reluctant free roaming snake. I've put him out on the table and I've opened the tub lid just to see what he does. And this is going to be a sort of combined free roaming opportunity combined with handling. And actually handling should just be the snake crawling over you, just as if it's crawling over the table. It shouldn't flinch. It should actually be going about its business and not bother about the fact that you've actually picked it up. But I don't think this is the right opportunity to do that with this snake, because he hasn't actually expressed an interest in coming out by himself. For today, I'm going to leave it. We'll attempt to handle him a different time. If I picked him up now, I think that could have negative consequences in that he's not really consenting to doing it. So we'll just leave him. We won't stress him out, and we'll try again another time when he's a bit more willing to participate. I think it's very important not to force this on our animals. We let them decide how any interaction is actually going to progress. And in this case, this snake is saying, I don't want any interaction right now. So we'll respect that and try again a different time. So this guy has now been out for at least 20 minutes and he is showing absolutely no sign of tiring of this activity. And remember, when he was first put on the desk, this guy was quite reluctant to come out of his tub. He'd never done this before. But you wouldn't know it now, just half an hour later. This guy is really into this IKEA paper rack. I think I could probably go and read a book, War and Peace or something, and then come back when I've finished it, and this guy would still be on the IKEA paper rack sniffing around. Absolutely incredible. And here we have another hatchling, not really much handled, and I've put him out on the table with the lid out, and this is what I want to see to have a session of interaction with a new hatchling. This is what I mean by allowing the snake to dictate the pace of any interactions that you might have. So this snake clearly is interested in something on the table. Don't worry, I have plenty of other snakes that we can compare these guys to that will not have been handled. So I'm going to show you a variety of hatchlings actually, and how they all respond, and how we attempt to habituate a snake so that it doesn't get fearful when it's picked up. And this is the first step of that process. We allow the snake to dictate its own terms of the interaction. So I will use this as an opportunity to actually pick this snake up, and I will film that so that you guys can see how that goes. Now I still have this adult out doing his thing, and I can tell from his behaviour now that he is just fixated on this IKEA rack, so I can pay more attention to the hatchling over here, who is also now fixated on the IKEA rack. Now I have attempted this before with two adult snakes, not an adult and a hatchling, and the hatchling does not seem to be at all fazed by the presence of the adult. But when you do this with two adult snakes, there is an interaction, and I'll show you guys that in a later video. So this guy here is actually checking out the IKEA scent post. So let's see if we can pick him up. No flinching, no huffing. He's actually going about his thing, and my hand is just something for him to crawl over. So let me just unhook his tail from the rack here. There we go. And it's very tough to actually do this, guys, with a hand phone and just one hand to handle, but you can see how this snake is not. Let me just put him down and see if I can get a better grip. Okay, so this guy has already decided he wants to come out and explore all by himself, and we're just using that as an opportunity to interact with him. And this guy is not shy and fearful. I don't think he even realises he's being picked up. His focus is on this IKEA scent post. Okay, so let me just actually handle this snake for a little while. Right, so I've swapped hands, and you can see this guy is actually crawling all over me. I could be anything. I could be a tree branch, I could be absolutely anything. This snake doesn't really care about my physical presence, which is excellent because he's not shy and fearful. So now he's off again exploring. So we're using free roaming, which is good, to actually get this snake habituated without fear to a little bit of handling. And this guy is off all over the place, while this guy here is just absolutely fixated. And you can see that I can actually pick this guy up now, very squirrely with just one hand. And now he's starting to resist, he's starting to try and run away. So what we can do is to allow him to settle down and free roam. Just allow him to settle down and free roam. I don't want to put him back into his tub while he still has this flight response from that little bit of handling. So let's let him settle down again now, see what he does. He's going straight underneath the IKEA rack there. But the point is here, we don't force it and we don't push it. We allow the snake to dictate its terms of a handling session. So as a first handling session for this hatchling, that's actually pretty good. And I think he gets some benefit from it and may actually associate being handled with an opportunity to come out and use the scent rack and explore. Here he is, coming out from underneath the paper rack on this side. So we'll just let him free roam for a few more minutes, couple more minutes. Let him settle back down so he's not in flight mode again after that brief amount of handling. He certainly let me know after a few minutes of trying to handle him that he'd had enough of that, but clearly he hasn't had enough of being out of his tub and being allowed to roam. So let's give him that opportunity and make the whole experience a positive one. And as you can see, guys, if you can catch a snake in this mode and you want to handle them, they are not in the least bit afraid. They get into this exploration mode. Go ahead and pick them up. This guy is not in the least bit fazed by me picking him up. He's still intent on exploring. So it's quite obvious that this guy is not seeking out interaction with me, but the good news is that he's not suffering any ill effects from it. He's not stressed out in the least bit by it. And this all depends on your snake. Your snake has to be in the mood, not just you. So there we go. This guy is back in his tub. And I'm pretty certain that he recognises that from the scent. He's been out for about 30 minutes. So I'm now just going to put him back in the rack. So during free roaming, how do we know when our snake is starting to relax? Tongue flicks. A nervous snake does not tongue flick. There are other indicators as well, of course, body language, you can read the body posture, etc. But one of the key indicators of a snake that's starting to relax is tongue flicks. What is a snake doing when it tongue flicks? Well, it's smelling, of course. It's smelling everything that is going on around it. What sense is probably the most highly developed in a snake? We know this already. It's scent, right? We know that scent is so important to a snake. How many times have you heard mentioned in discussions about enrichment? How many times have you heard scent mentioned? Never, right? Nobody ever mentions scent. In any of the scientific papers that have been done on studies of snake behaviour in captivity, they talk about climbing, they talk about texture, they talk about all sorts of different things. They never talk about scent. The most powerful sensory stimulation that your snake can get, scent, is never talked about in any of these videos. And in fact, when we put enrichment into our tubs and into our terrariums, what do we do with that enrichment before we put it in the tub? We soak it in disinfectant for 24 hours. We rigorously clean and sterilize it. We remove every trace of anything that the snake might possibly be interested in. We talk about texture, we talk about climbing, and we use those as indicators of how stressed our snakes are in captivity. A lot of the studies have simply measured how often your snake comes out of its hide. How much time does it spend climbing a tree? How much time does it spend doing this? How much time does it spend doing that? And we compare that to the time that it spends doing those activities in a tub, which is zero, of course, because it can't do any of those things in a tub. So we then make that leap of faith that, it's doing all of these things in a terrarium, it's not doing them in a tub, and therefore it's deprived. However, scent is not one of those enrichments that's considered. Let me assure you that if you put some snake poop into the corner of the terrarium and then measured how much time your snake spent outside its hide, how much time it spent climbing, how much time it does all of these activities that we use to say that our snake is deprived, that it would be completely different with some snake poop in the corner of the terrarium. What is it about snake poop that interests our snakes? Why do my snakes spend all their time on the IKEA snake rack or in the bin? When laboratories want to measure pheromones or hormones in our snakes, short of a blood sample, what do they use to measure the pheromone and hormone state of our snakes? They use fresh sheds, they use snake poop. What are the two things that our snakes are most interested in when they're free roaming? Fresh sheds and snake poop. So no prizes for guessing what it is that our snakes are doing when they spend all their time sniffing snake poop and fresh sheds. You show me some enrichment that we can place in our tub, a toilet roll, a cuddly toy, something with holes in it that the snake can crawl through. You show me something that can hold a snake's attention for 30 minutes, non-stop, absolutely fixated on the object concerned. There is none. My IKEA rack, a waste paper bin full of snake poop, they are two objects that my snakes will spend ages. They examine every little corner, nook and cranny of this IKEA rack. They'll spend 30 minutes in the bin without moving. What other enrichment could do that? So, having established what I think it is that my snakes are actually interested in when they're free roaming, and that was a real eureka moment, none of the enrichment activities that get talked about have anything to do with scent. Now, Bob Bledsoe on Green Room Pythons does a lot of free roaming. He knows, he's seen his snakes moving around and scenting. So what I thought I would do is fresh shed, dirty bedding. The female that you saw in a previous video that spent all that time in the bin, and every time I opened her tub she was very restless and wanted to come out, and she went straight in the bin. I put some dirty bedding into her tub. Now, I'm always a little bit cautious about putting scented objects into a snake's home. Sometimes they respond territorially to it. So I thought I would try it with this female, and I suspect that males and females might get a different response. But the female is currently, for the last 2 days, has been curled up around that dirty bedding like it's a pillow. Fast asleep, no more roaming, no more wanting to come out. She's curled around that dirty bedding and she hasn't moved. So my next job, the terrarium girl here, is to put some dirty bedding into the terrarium, and let's see how that girl responds. She establishes a nightly ambush facing the front, so food is obviously a big driver for some of her behaviours, but she doesn't climb, she doesn't use any of the enrichment items that I've put into the terrarium, and I suspect the reason she doesn't, there is absolutely no interest for her in any of that enrichment because it has no scent. So what I'm going to do is to introduce scent into this terrarium experiment and see how that affects the behaviour of our snakes. I think you will find that the snake will behave very differently when we give it some stimulus that it's actually interested in. Your shy and fearful snake that has effectively turned into a vegetable because you've kept it in a tub, 5 minutes, guys. 5 minutes. That's all it took this snake to come out of its tub and be roaming around this room like it had been doing it all its life. Something that's troubled me for a long time about the narrative that snakes in tubs are sensory deprived and it affects their mental development. Now, I'm not saying that enrichment in tubs is not a good idea. Free roaming and enrichment is obviously a good idea. What I think that the snake is doing while it's doing these activities is not what we think it's doing. It's not playing, it's not cuddling toys, it's not feeling textures, it's smelling. It wants to know what's going on in its world through scent. Scent is the most important behaviour driver in our snakes, and none of this enrichment and scientific studies on snake behaviour have studied scent. Alright guys, drop down in the comments and let me know what you think. This is actually quite a revelation for me. Selecting that snake that's been in a tub for 7 years and never handled has taught me a lot more about what it is that motivates our snakes. 5 minutes is all it took after 7 years. 5 minutes. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.